Hey Deep Chatters, I'm Leah Morris here with my co-host Jennifer Butler, and this is Deep Chats Podcast, where we have raw discussions about real life. Each week you can expect unfiltered, no BS conversations from the heart about topics that actually might matter to you. We're just a couple of relationship coaches who want to cut through the small talk and dive deeper. So thanks for joining us on this journey, and be sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode.
Hey Deep Chatters, welcome back. We are here today with an awesome guest. Her name is Jamie Kolnick. Jamie's a writer, a mama, a musician, a philanthropist, and founder and CEO of the nationwide children's music company Jam with Jamie. She's currently writing a comedic comic, coming of age memoir about loss. And that's actually what we're going to dive into with her today, this topic of loss. So, Jamie, thank you for being here with us and
thanks for having me.
This work in these crazy times.
Yeah, here I am in my car making it work.
Yeah,
got to do what you got to do to find some peace and quiet around here.
Exactly. So, I just want to give you some space to just let our audience kind of know who you are and just kind of some juicy bits about yourself, and then just kind of see where the conversation goes.
Okay, sounds great. So I'm currently in Miami where I grew up. I escaped here a couple weeks ago. I basically went from one epicenter in New York to the next epicenter in Miami. I'm kind of like epicenter hopping right now,
Yeah.
Which has been this like cool new thing that I've been doing. You may want to try it. No, I wanted to be close to my brother. You know, the past 5-6 months, who knows where we are now, have been so challenging. I have 2 kids, a 2 and a 4-year-old. And, you know, I'm so grateful to have a nice apartment in New York and a roof over my head. But I would be lying if I didn't say that it was challenging to, you know, kind of be experiencing this Groundhog Day that a lot of us have been going through. A lot of the loss of the life that we had pre-COVID, and just an adaptation to the new life that we have. It's been hard. So it's been great change of pace and scenery to be back in my hometown of Miami and, you know, doing the same thing, but with a pool, which makes like all the difference. Just like throw the kids in the pool like all day long and call it a day. And it's been like really revitalizing to be here. But grew up here. I've been singing and acting most of my life. My mom always told me that I was, you know, really good at those 2 things, but more equipped for socializing. I've always been a chatty Cathy and got like 3s in conduct constantly. And it serves me now. At the time, you know, I think, you know what, I just saw this. My mom had written something in one of my books, one of those books that your parents write for you, that said my 1st grade teacher, you know, wasn't worried about my conduct because one day I would be running the school.
And I love that.
He's like, yeah, she's super chatty, but one day she'll be running this place. And so I guess that says a lot about me. I love to, I started my company Jam with Jamie back in 2008. And I honestly never thought that I would be an entrepreneur. I actually didn't even know how to pronounce entrepreneur. My brother made fun of me on my wedding day. He's like, my sister, the entrepreneur. And like, you know, one of those, I mix up words a lot, and like he makes fun of me constantly. I wasn't, you know, I just never thought that was going to be what I did. I was auditioning for everything under the sun in New York. I wanted to be on Broadway, and I started teaching music classes to kids as had been something I'd done most of my life. And, you know, as an assistant music teacher. And so it was a natural way for me to make some extra cash. And then I was like, you know what, I really love this. Like, I'm gonna do this on my own. And my mom actually helped me come up with the name Jam with Jamie. And it was when she had been battling breast cancer for about 15 years by that point when I launched the company. And she helped me come up with the name. And she was unfortunately getting sicker and sicker, like right in the beginning as I had started the company. And I had to come down to Miami like only 4 months after starting it. And we were beginning to ramp up. We had a mention in Time Out Kids, and people were reaching out to me to book parties. And I had to give those parties to my friends that were also in the business. And I came to Miami to be with my mom towards the end of her life, which it was probably, I was here for like 3 or 4 months before she passed away. But we had a lot of time to talk about the business, and it was really beautiful to kind of create the concept with her and dream a little bit. She's like, one day, Jamie, like, you're going to be doing birthday parties for celebrities. Like, I can just see it right now. And I'm like, oh, mom, yeah, whatever. You're on a lot of medication. But it was a really nice, I feel like we kind of created that experience together, which was really beautiful to continue it now running the company with my best friend, who's my operations manager. She became my operations manager in March. Sounds like a scary thing to do, but actually was like the biggest blessing ever to go through this time with my best friend as like my, you know, partner in crime. And she's just so smart and amazing. And I love her with all my heart. So having her there with me through this experience now has been incredible. I have about 50 performers across the country who do birthday parties, classes, events. We place teachers in preschools to do curriculum for music programs. We're about to launch a homeschool program. We've done a ton of virtual classes since the beginning of the pandemic. And, you know, it's like pure survival right now. We're just trying to figure out how to create revenue streams and stay alive. And just to go back a little bit, since we're going to be talking about loss, before my mom passed away, my father passed away from leukemia in 2004. It was very sudden. I only found out like a year prior that he was sick. And then sadly, 5 years before that, my brother, Alan, who was 18, passed away in a car accident. And I was 13 at the time. So, you know, my family, my little family has been through quite a lot. But something that I've felt through it all is that we've had each other and have learned from each of the experiences as something that can only move us forward through life. When Alan passed away, you know, my parents were completely broken, and I, being 13 years old, could only understand so much of what was happening. And I think I just really pushed it away. Like, I just wanted to be the social conduct threes, you know, like, you know, getting in trouble, playing with my friends. Like, that was what I gravitated towards, just being normal. Like, don't look at me like I'm the girl with the brother who just died. Right. I don't want to be that girl. I just want to be your friend who likes to have fun and wants to sing and dance in like an empty lot next to my house and like make up stupid jokes, and just like, I want to be that girl. So I actually, during Shiva, we're Jewish, and there was a 7-day Shiva, and I put up a sign on my door that said the happy room, and my friends helped me decorate it. And I said, nobody can come in my room unless they're happy. So I guess that can, you know, show you a little bit of where I was at that point. I knew I had suffered a huge loss, but my way of coping was to turn towards the light and to be with my friends. And sure, like, I was ignoring the big thing, but I just don't think I was able to fully grasp what it meant, you know. Like, I knew he was gone, and it was devastating. And my brother Mike, who I'm visiting now, we handled it very differently. I feel like he was more quiet, more focused, like maybe understood a little bit more, being older, how this affected his future and affected his present. And, you know, I was like the little butterfly that was escaping in dreamland. And I kind of was like that for like the next 10 years. I don't know. Like, I mean, I chose to use my creativity to get through the loss. I wrote a play. I wrote a lot of music. But yeah, I was like the creative type, like channeling her energy into, you know, like I was total stereotypical. Like my brother made a lot of fun of me, and I of course took it to heart. I'm like, fuck off, you know, like this is how we all grieve differently. Like this is how I'm dealing with it. And it was, I mean, it was incredibly sensitive, horrible time. My dad, my parents were trying to be strong for me and my brother. And only a few years later, my dad was diagnosed with leukemia, and he didn't tell us. He wanted to protect us, and my mom had been sick at the time, on and off with breast cancer, so he didn't want us to have another thing. My maiden name is Epstein, and you know, I think our like running joke was like those poor Epsteins, like the poor schmucks, like, you know, like he just had this idea in his head that we'd been through enough, and he didn't want to burden us with another thing in our childhood to taint our childhood, and he felt like he could just deal with it privately. And I completely understand and respect that more now, and I think I did at the time when he told us. But so we didn't have like a ton of time to grasp that he was going to get a bone marrow transplant, and then a year later he passed. Yeah, through all of that, I mean, I guess now that was 2009. We're almost like 12 years since my mom passed away. About the same since I started the business. We live in New York. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old boys, rambunctious. I saw them leave. We were able to get away without them bothering me in the car, going on a scooter ride. And they, you know, give me hope for the future, keep me spunky young, like they're like my new happy room. And they are, you know, I now have a chance to build my own family and look ahead towards all of the awesome things that life has to bring, and, you know, have my past just help me catapult forward and let it be a strength.
I love, gosh, I mean, first of all, I'm just the losses that you've gone through. So I just want to extend my condolences. And
thank you.
Yeah. The being so creative, do you feel like you were grieving through that, even though it didn't look like the quote unquote proper way to grieve? Do you feel like being creative and being really true to your spirit allowed you to grieve in your own way?
100%. Yeah, that was it. Grieving, it looks different for everyone. For me at the time, what brought my soul rest and peace was to channel it into that creative energy. So to be 13 years old and to write a play about, you know, I think it was like this dream-like sequence where Alan came to visit me. I had a real dream where he visited me, like on Snapper Creek Drive, not on Snapper Creek, on Old Cutler. Like there was this bench there, and I had this whole image of where he met me, and I had this dream, so I created this little play about our conversation on this bench, and just taking a personal experience and putting it into dialogue. It was completely therapeutic. And now I'm writing my memoir, and while it's very therapeutic, I'm hoping it's also a service to, and I think all memoirs are a service, and to for other people to see themselves inside your story and to see those words and to help them as well. So I think I felt the same with my play then, like, and maybe it was subconscious because I was only 13, but maybe there was other kids who could see themselves when they've experienced a loss in that play. And I actually think we did share the play with grievance counselors at the time, and we made a little video along with it for them to share with other young adults and children who had experienced loss as something to be like a tool.
Wow. So cool. I think that grief, even for adults, is so confusing to, like, even if it's not your own, how do I even approach someone who is grieving? Like there's it's just not talked about enough, I feel. and especially to children, I think that can be an even more confusing time. Maybe not. Maybe children just innately know to do what they need to do at times. Just like you turn to creativity and turn to like expression in whatever way made you feel lighter and more peaceful. But it's I wish I would have had this tool as a child. Even, I mean, I didn't really experience any sort of grief that actually felt like anything to me until I was an adult, like 30 years old. And then, you know, it just kind of like hit like waves over and over. But I remember being younger and knowing peers and other people in my life who were experiencing grief, and my reaction to it was silence. I didn't want to say anything wrong. I didn't want to like make it worse in any way. And it's so great that you're providing this, I guess, like pathway for that expression to come out and for them to still stay in their processing.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Like as a young girl, like how do you know how to approach someone who's experiencing such loss? Honestly, even after experiencing so much loss, I still run into these situations where I don't know what to say when someone's going through a hard time. Really, it's any loss, right? Someone's lost a child or has had a miscarriage or has these big losses. It's really hard to know what do they want us to say, what's the right thing to do. And there should be a book just written on that, because I think that I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the right way to support someone, and the biggest thing I think is to listen, to say whatever you need, I'm here for you to listen. Like even airing that, like, I don't know what to do, but I just want you to know that I'm here for you and I love you. And if you're going to say that you can offer something or show up, then do it and show up and bring that banana bread, or, offer to pick up groceries, or whatever it is that you can do that comes from your heart, that it will be well received. But of course, I mean, like, I've been through plenty of times where like I've said nothing too, and like not known what to say and froze. And in these experiences where a friend has lost someone or something intangible, it's not always easy to know how to approach them, especially if they're closed off. But I think that the best thing to do is like say, I'm here to listen whenever you want, and really listen.
Mm-hmm. That's so,
and not offer too much advice,
yeah,
like unless it's asked for. I think that's like one thing. Like don't put words in their mouth. Just like be there as an ear and like a bouncing board. Like maybe even like repeating what they're saying. Like I hear this, and just being supportive in that way, I think is the best advice I could give to anyone that wants to be there for someone who's going through a hard time, whether it be an intangible loss, like, oh my gosh, I lost my business, I lost my job, or I lost my life since COVID, like, or I'm like, I don't know what to do right now. I mean, a lot of people are grieving in this quarantine experience. So even saying like, hey, I've had this amazing group of friends who I actually met through Hey Mama. They're incredible. We've been in a group chat since March, and we've, through the months, just checked in with each other. Hey, how are you doing? Like, how's everybody? What's going on? Who cried in their closet today? Like, who else is taking meetings from the car? Like, it's been, it's that sort of support is everything in any challenging times.
Yeah, I love that you say that. I lost my father in 2014, and I remember, I mean, it's so difficult, as you know, but I always will remember that sort of transition period where you're surrounded by so many people, right? Because there's like the wake and the funeral, and there's just people are bringing you things, and there's so much energy around you. And there is a point where that fades, and it transitions into you really just having to sit alone without all the distractions. And I remember that being probably the hardest part to get through, and really struggling with like not even really sure how to ask. Like I don't even think I knew what I needed, so it was like I couldn't even ask for the support. I remember that part being, and so I love that you say, you know, just lending your ear, like being willing to, hey, I'm here to listen, or I'm here to just sit here silently on the phone with you and not say a word, right? Like just that, I think would have felt so good to have as you say that.
Absolutely. And first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss. I see you. And I mean, even now, I'm sure you have moments where it feels like it was yesterday, because it was. I mean, like this is a journey. Like this isn't something that you put a Band-Aid on and just move on with your life because other things are happening. It's like, it's going to come, especially when you dig it up and you're talking about it, you're writing about it, it's going to come up and it's going to feel like a fresh wound. And yes, like Shiva was the best. I looked forward to Shiva, like guilty. Like I remember when my dad passed away, we were in Beverly Hills where he was getting treatment in LA. And I remember knowing he was going to die and having a weird excitement for Shiva and it was my second time around because I remembered Alan Shiva and how amazing it was to have everybody there and just like talking about him. And like the end of someone's life is just so hard, and it's such a grueling period if it's not sudden. And Alan's death was sudden, but when my dad was sick and my mom was sick, it was grueling, and like in and out of the hospital, like just like months and months of ups and downs, and it just like takes such a toll. So then when you're met with the end, there is a relief. There is a relief for everyone. I think there was a relief for the people who passed, and there's a relief for the family members, because if it's a long end, while we want to keep them around forever, there's a point in which they need to leave, and we need to let them leave. And it's amazing to be, I mean, I found it comforting. Not everybody does, but I found it comforting to be surrounded by people. I actually wonder how my brother would answer that, if he would have feel the same. I have this feeling he likes it, but doesn't like it as much as I did. And I loved being surrounded by people. And it's like, it's devastating when everyone leaves and you're all alone. And especially when people stop bringing over food, people stop calling. And that's why I think if you can continue to show up in some capacity, even if it's like texts, showing up for someone to say, hey, I'm thinking of you. I just want you to know that I love you and I'm thinking of you. And, you know, if you want to like breathe on the phone with each other, we can do that, or breathe over Zoom. Or if you want to like, you know, offer to do something fun, like, we can't pick each other up in these times. Can I like, would you like some ice cream? I'll send you some ice cream, or like just send the ice cream, or just like do little things for the people in your life that are going through a hard time, even if they're not asking for it, because I promise it will be appreciated. Even if like, you're not sure that's the right thing to do, it'll just be like, wow, like this person's thinking about me. Like that feels really good. You know, now like 12 years after my mom passed away, I feel like my friends would be like they're not checking on me, like, hey, Jamie, like, how you doing? I just want to make sure you're doing okay. Like I'm hoping it just becomes a natural part of conversation. Like this shouldn't be a taboo thing that we can't talk about. Like, you know, my parents and my brother passed away, and I would love everybody to know that it's a journey. It's not something we put a Band-Aid on and that all of a sudden 12 years later, we're just over. It's something we live with for the rest of our lives. So maybe like bring it up sometimes. Hey, you know what? I just wanted to like, I know it's been a long time, but I want you to know that I think about you and your losses. And like, if you ever want to talk about it, like I'm here to talk to you. So like they're seen. It's okay to say that. They're not gonna be like, oh my God, like, how dare you talk about those dead people? And
Yeah.
like, that's that's how people think. Like, oh my God, I'm not going to talk about the dead people. Like, they were once alive and we miss them a lot. So like, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Not that I want to talk about it all the time. Yeah. Not, and I was just going to say, not that I want to talk about it all the time, but I think an invitation to talk about it is okay. And it's something that I would love for people with like close people in their lives who've lost to feel comfortable just like opening that up, because sometimes you don't know what to ask for, right? Like you said, like, it's not like I don't know what I need, but what if someone were to come to you and say, do you need this? Maybe you'd say, yeah, like, actually, thank you. Like, I appreciate that. Do I talk to my sons? So recently I was looking through photo albums and saying, you know, this was my mommy and she's not here anymore. And I talked to him about Alan and how he was in an accident and wasn't here anymore. And I use the word dead. I don't say we lost him, because I think you like lose your car keys, but you know, I think it's important to just use real words with kids. So I say they died and they're not here anymore and mommy loved them very much. And it's felt like a lot whenever I brought it up, because then my son, my 4-year-old, has a ton of questions. My 2-year-old, I haven't brought it up at all, but I try and bring out pictures for him to just look at. And I think it's important to have pictures around. And my son, I think, gets it, like gets what dead means, but sometimes he's like, we'll be like on a street with all the cars that are parked along the side, and he'll be like, are all the cars dead? And I'm like, they're just off right now. So I think there's it's hard for them to fully understand what that means. And I'm just, you know, I'm treading carefully with it, but I want to be open. Like, I want to share with him that mommy had a mommy and a daddy and a brother that aren't here anymore, and that she loves and misses them very much, and they would have loved him so much. And that's like the biggest message. I guess I too am learning about this myself now that I have kids, like what to share, what's too much, is it scary? Like, I think he knows he was in an accident and it was a car accident, and I didn't want to scare him about cars, and he's not really at this point. But I think it's because I pulled back a little bit. Like, I didn't want to instill any fear. And he like went into this like spiral at one point, like talking about like creating an image of the car accident in his head and saying it out loud. So I stopped talking about it a little bit, because I didn't want him to get like in a loop around it. And I'm still like learning how to go about the conversation, but I do want to continue to have it.
I mean, it sounds so beautiful. Like, you're really letting your intuition guide you, and, you know, just sitting here listening, I think that right there is better than if you had a detailed list of exactly how you were supposed to say it. Like, I think just the willingness to be in the muck and the vulnerability with him is beyond anything.
It's felt okay in those moments. I think he said, like, did he fall out of the car? Did he fall out? And I was like, you know, it was an accident. And I just didn't want like that image in his head. And I don't know where he created that, but I also wanted to like honor it and say, you know, it sometimes, you know, these things happen, but you don't need to worry. And yeah, I guess you're right. Like, following my intuition, and there's not always a rule book, and everybody might say different things. And we all know what we want to say to our kids more than any book can tell us what to say.
Exactly. Yeah. And your conversation with your other child might look totally different because they're different.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it'll be like, you know, I'll just keep saying that, like, this is my mommy and daddy, and they would have been your grandparents and your uncle, and just like reminding them of that they're not here anymore, but they love them. And then I think the conversation can naturally flow.
Yeah, I feel like too, I mean, at the very like core of this, you're normalizing sadness and maybe confusion and you know, things that typically we try to steer away from. And I think that when I say we, I mean like society as a whole. And, you know, touching on what you said earlier about the intangible losses like business, way of life, health, even. Those are obviously things that we all experience too. And just to have sons that are okay with saying, I'm really sad right now because I'm letting go of this dream or this, what a X, Y, and Z is just like a really powerful thing, I think, to teach men, right? Like how to be in their feelings and to express and like lean in there.
Yeah, empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? To instill that in these little boys. And Zach does share when he's sad, and or frustrated. I think he's really in tune with his feelings. I mean, sometimes he's just a complete maniac, but then there's this other side of him that's just so tender. And I think it's because he really feels like when he's really happy, he's really happy. When he's really sad, he's really sad. When he's, you know, it's like, it's the extreme of any emotion. And as parents, I think our job is to just honor those moments and let them sink into it and tell them it's okay. As long as they're not throwing Paw Patrol trucks at your face, which has happened. That's not okay. I actually just wrote this article about the worst tantrum, like at least of my life so far. And a friend of mine read it and she goes, "Oh, you weren't in my living room yesterday." Like that was, I mean, we never know what other people are dealing with, right? Like we think our living room, that nothing could top that. Like that was ridiculous. And then like, you know, my friend's like, "Nope, that's not what happened. Like you want to go like head for head on this." So yeah, I mean, he feels big, and we try and honor that and try and also take him off the ledge when it's intense, as we all, I'm sure, know how that is for little ones that are trying to sort through their feelings.
Yeah, especially now too. I like how you started to talk too about the situation we're in right now with COVID and honoring the fact that there's losses, you know, there's a lot of losses that we're all dealing with, and our kids are navigating through and trying to understand. And I think sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to grieve things that don't rate, you know, it's like, oh, I shouldn't feel bad about this because there's, you know, other things that could be worse. And we kind of like put ourselves on this comparison chart, and we don't give ourselves permission to like just grieve and feel even the loss of not being able to, you know, see friends or do, you know, go to a grocery store, or just do the things that we normally do. Those are losses.
For sure. They really are. And there's so many people who don't know how to explain it right now. And there's mood swings and ups and downs. And this is like just such an uncertain time. Like all of us are feeling it one way or another. I've spoken with performers of mine recently, and every industry except for Amazon is suffering. And no, there's like, I mean, look, there's my husband's a research analyst, and he's been like telling me like all the industries that are doing really well, but the majority that I see every day in the creative world, like it's really hard. And you know, especially like I talk to my performers a lot who like can't perform as much. And I mean, we're starting to do social distance play groups. And that's nice to be able to like bring music to kids, like has been incredible during this time. Even if it's for free, like it's been like just amazing to like see the like just bring joy. I love the idea of nonprofits. We have a nonprofit in memory of Alan, and it's a scholarship foundation. And basically Jam with Jamie went nonprofit in March, We're trying to like get our way out of it, but it was the best part of my business in 12 years. Like I've never felt so much joy from this, like taking this negative experience, and as my mom would say, turn it into a positive solution, has been like the name of the game. And I think we can all think about this time, first of all, honor the grief within us, that this is real, that I've lost a part of myself right now, and that sucks. Like that's okay to say that, and that it won't be like this forever. And just honoring that, and also saying, well, what does this mean for my future? How can I utilize this big challenge that I'm going through right now to come out of it the other side, like fueled, with energy to create, to change, to be better, to maybe change who I'm working with, or change who I'm with, or change the people in my life. Or I've had a lot of change, like on top of all the change that all of us are going through. There have been other losses that have actually been good losses. Certain people that aren't working for the company anymore, certain contracts I don't have anymore. And it's all been like what was meant to be, and like good. Like, and I think it's kind of this cut the bullshit mentality. When we're all in this really challenging time together, we see like what's important. And I would just say, for everybody that is feeling that grief, those ups and downs, I would see part of it as a blessing. Like, cut the bullshit. Like, what do you want in your life right now? What don't you want in your life? And like, listen to that. Listen to what your gut's saying. Like, if you think that you're working with a client that like isn't worth your time and you don't mesh, do yourselves a favor and just get out of it. If there's someone you're working with that doesn't make sense, get out of it. Like, whatever it is, like, just trust it. And it's not a bad thing. I think people look at confrontation as a bad thing. But it's actually a good thing to like embrace confrontation and think of it as like a service to each other, to honor what you both need and move on. So I don't think I would have spoken like that 6 months ago. And that's something that I found in the past 6 months of the ups and downs, is just this like way to move forward with what really matters in business and life.
100%. It's like this big like pressure cooker. And I've thought so many times, like, people are breaking under this pressure. And you start to see those things that have gone left unattended. You start to see like the bullshit, like you said, the extra bullshit that like just needed to come up. People naturally start to fall out of your life. Like, it's really sad. It's really scary. It's really, it kind of makes you feel crazy at times. But I also 100% agree with what you're saying. Like, sometimes that's necessary for us to just deal with what is of the most value for us. Like that pressure cooker, or maybe I'm envisioning like a boiling pot. Like, when all that water's gone and all that dilution is gone, you're left with that gold. And it's like that intentional focus on those things that really matter. It can really catalyze so much more lightness, so much more clarity, so much more certainty, right? Like, the uncertainty is like creating more certainty in a lot of ways. So I love how you said that.
And I love the way that you said that like boiling pot just like drained of the water that's not supposed, that you don't want there anymore. There's good stuff that's happening right now. And I started thinking of like shedding a skin, like a snake like sheds its skin. Like, we all have layers. Now I'm thinking of an onion. We could just do this all day. What else has layers? What else sheds skin? But like, we need to shed those layers and to improve ourselves and to improve our quality of life. So yes, there are so many challenges that people are facing right now, and a lot of loss. And I think a challenge in figuring out the words to put around it, and maybe honoring that it's grieving, honoring that it's loss. I think grief is typically associated with death loss, but you can be grieving an intangible loss as well. And I think that there needs to be like a PSA about this, that like, you know, to honor that, and also like think about what you need to get through that, and just to like breathe in it. And yeah, just to think about like where are the parts of this experience that I can overcome and find myself better at the other side. What can I shed from this challenging time and allow myself to shed?
Yeah, that permission to let go, but also to grieve that letting go. It's such a beautiful dance in a way. But yeah, I resonate with a lot of what you're saying. I think our listeners are going to as well. Not having those words, not having steps to take, and you know, what do I do with all of this? And do I let go when everything is being taken from me already? Like, do I let go of the other constants that are in my life? If, you know, if that's, it's just a lot. So I'm glad we're putting it into words now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a soul searching opportunity. When everything is so chaotic and you feel like you're in the middle of a tornado, take the time to make sure that you're taking a little bit of time for yourself to really reflect on that whirlwind, on that tornado, and like what's in my life that I really want and what's not. What am I missing? And I think it's like this like rebirth opportunity. I have a life coach. Her name is Antoinette. She's the founder of One in Many. She's absolutely incredible. And I went through this really challenging loss of somebody who worked with me. It'd been like years and years of work with the person and the client, and I was distraught when I lost both. And she told me, and I was like sobbing, and I never sob on the phone with her. We'll talk about like death loss and like all, and like I'm never crying, and she's always saying, just cry, Jamie. Just like something about my business at times, like because I just invest so much of my energy into it to like forget about everything else that really matters. Not that it doesn't matter, but like I don't know if anybody else out there like throws himself into work just to, like as a distraction, and gets so bent out of shape when something goes wrong. But like the big things in life, like it's hard to like let yourself get bent out of shape. Anyways, I was a hot mess, and she said that oh, now I'm gonna mess this up. Something about like being stuck in the mud, that a lily comes out of the mud, and that like I was in the mud right now, and that the beautiful lily like survives out of mud. I think it's a lily, correct me if I'm wrong, but that the lily will come out of the mud. And I just loved this image of going from the mud and feeling that and knowing that the lily was going to thrive and survive and grow out of that mud. So I loved that image.
I love all the metaphors we're using today. I'm such a metaphor person too. It's actually a lotus, which I think is a type of lily.
Thank you. Good, great. Lotus, you got me.
Yeah, and I mean, here you are. I know, right? You're. I think everything that you've created as an entrepreneur is really entrepreneur. Is really like reflected, you know, your journey is reflected through this. Like I'm envisioning to like the petals of this lotus being like everything that you're creating and putting out there. It's all risen from this muddy place and this sticky place. And so I was going to ask you, can you let our listeners know where to find all these wonderful things that you've created and how to keep in contact?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram is where I post the most. Jam with Jamie is our business page, but I also have personal stuff on there as well, at Jam with Jamie on Instagram, and at Jamie Kolnick on Instagram as well, is where I play with posting a little bit of my writing samples every now and then as I work through this memoir. And jamwithjamie.com if you have kiddos and want to book a party, and jamiekolnick.com if you want to go see old footage of me in commercials and musical theater. But maybe don't go there. It's been like years since I updated it. I literally do. Does anybody else out there have websites that they've just completely neglected because like life has happened, but like you keep paying the server because you just can't let jamiekolnick.com go. Like I need jamiekolnick.com, but it's very outdated. But yeah, if you want to go see songs I've written, and I've written a couple web series called Kid Friendly. That's not kid friendly, it's for adults. I'm working on a comedic show called Sitting Shiva that is, we might change the name, but it's a show about loss that we want to maybe visit various cultures in loss versus just Judaism, which is why we might be changing the name. But you know, when I get around to it, I'll update my website with that stuff, with my memoir, with you know, all that stuff that's not kids related on there. So that's how you can find me.
Awesome.
And if you were to leave our listeners with like one sage piece of wisdom, what would you want that to be?
I would reiterate and say again, my favorite quote of life, which my mom shared with me often. Every negative experience can lead us to a positive solution. Live one day at a time and live it fully.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here today, Jamie.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
This was really great, and I look forward to meeting you both in person when that is appropriate.
Thank all of you deep chatters for being here today too, and for listening. We would love your feedback, and to keep in touch with Jamie, we'll include that all in the show notes. But until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
To all you deep chatters out there, Leah and I want to thank you so much for listening. This is a podcast that's all about connection, so we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on Instagram at Deep Chats Podcast. And if you haven't already, please go to iTunes to rate and review us. Every review helps other deep chatters just like you be able to find this podcast.